Welcome to the Combot Collective.
Hello everyone and welcome to a news episode of the Combot Collective here. I am your host as always, Sterling Brown, current moderator of the BattleBots subreddit, current runner of King of Draft, and former writer at Third Law Sports. Joined here for this little news bit by Mr. Redman as we go talk about some live event news today. Big news coming out of Extreme Robots on the 8th of April, their brand new team member, one of the executives of Extreme Robot now, alongside John Finley, is Glenn Joseph Robinson. And as of April 8th, they posted big news at 9:43 a.m. Central Standard Time that Extreme Robots will, be back with 5 brand new tour dates that we'll be getting into in here in a minute. But most interestingly, that they're going to be doing a weekly web series now called Reactivated, which is going to be diving into the behind the scenes of Extreme Robots, the teams, and just a lot of the big interior aspects of the British live scene. They're going to be talking a lot about just setting up these live events. Also talking about event dates. We know that on the 21st and 22nd of May, the Extreme Robots will be at Portsmouth. On the 11th and 12th of June, they will be at Guildford. On the 10th and the 11th of September, they will be at Colchester. On the 15th and 16th of October, they will be at Maidstone. 12th and 13th of November, they will be at Cheltenham. And that's going to be their schedule for this year. You know that the Combot Collective will be covering all these events going throughout the year. And like we said, they're making some big changes. They made some big announcements over here on the 9th, announcing those 5 event dates, which we'll be covering, and announcing the Reactivated series. They also have announced that they'll be having some very interesting teams coming in to compete at these events. Looks like Extreme Robots is back in the game. They're back and doing some live events. We'll have the link for their page in the description below. But just some quick thoughts, guys. What are y'all thinking about Extreme Robots coming back? It's exciting to see the UK scene coming in, especially for you, Red.
It's just nice to have, British Robot Combat back. It's always a pleasure to have the scene still be alive and around. I mean, I still miss Robot Wars, and just I'm glad to see that there is something just still around, still keeping the sport alive, really, and keeping it going. I'm hoping, once more for maybe a show to appear on maybe YouTube or on TV once more. Something needs to compete against BattleBots and keep the competition going.
Seriously.
But what we have is better than nothing, and I'm just glad that we have Extreme Robots back, because I went to see some of the live events before it really became Extreme Robots. Yeah, it wasn't really rebranded at that point, and ever since the rebranding, they've kind of become a lot more.
They become more serious. They have the spinners now. They have the start of your
they've
arena.
got the spinners. Yeah, they've got it's all because it used to be all just ramming and flipping, and now they've actually got the more serious arena, the serious design, everything going on. It's it feels more legitimate, and you can't help but feel optimistic that maybe this legitimacy in the future could lead to something more visual media-esque. I mean, we've got BuggleBots, and I think BuggleBots is actually a decent hit, so maybe Extreme Robots YouTube series? Who knows?
That's what I'm saying. They announced that Reactivated series, and that's going to be really exciting to see, how people like John Finley, like Jason Marston, like Team Shock, a lot of these people, Michael Oates, these are people that we don't really hear a lot about. We don't have the same, insight that we see with BattleBots. You know how BattleBots is and how good they are at putting, the magnifying glass on teams like Andreas Suarez and Witch Doctor, Will Bales, and Hypershock, Hell, Rucker, and Duck. We can now get that kind of insight and that look at some of these British teams. Tell you what, are any of these dates, any of these events near you, Red? Or any of these locations, Portsmouth, Guildford, Colchester, Maidstone, Cheltenham, any of those near you?
Yeah, Colchester is definitely near me, so I could always try and slip myself in if I have time.
There you go. We'll need to send you as a scout. Go out there and get us the dirt, get us the juice on that. And it looks like we have a little bit more to talk about here, as Extreme Robots has made another video talking a little bit more about the Reactivate series and a good bit more about the 2022 Extreme Robots season here. This video was done by, of course, Chris Wilkins and a newly hired man in charge, Glenn Robinson, posted on April 15th on the Extreme Robots main YouTube page. It looks like they announced a little bit more about the competition format, how these 5 events are going to go down. And along with this, they announced the 3 teams for the 2022 XR season. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. Extreme Robots and Glenn Robinson did say that they will be employing a Formula One style standing system with the 3 teams that are going to be used in the Extreme Robots competition this year. I'm not the biggest F1 guy, but loosely explain the ruling as there's multiple teams. Each team has multiple cars, and they all run. It's like a combined points kind of thing. Not as many teams here, obviously, being only 3 teams. I believe F1 has 12 or even more than that teams on their grid. But we're likely going to be seeing a whole bunch of robots on all 3 of these teams. So that's going to be a fascinating competition setup here. Something they've kind of done in seasons past, but I think this is a more refined version of the team setup that we've seen prior. Talking about the teams, though, we have some very familiar faces for the UK live scene and even Robot Wars with these groups here. Starting off with Team Inferno. This is likely going to be the fan favorite, the big dog team in the block with Extreme Robots here. This is, of course, going to be captained by Michael Oates and all of Team Ignition. These guys are behind Eruption, Ignition, some of the better flippers coming out of the UK scene. Eruption, arguably one of the best robots in the world right now. But a big competition for them is going to be Team Quake, which is led by Will Thomas of Team Shock. These guys, very fitting name here, Team Quake. We know these guys very well for robots like Aftershock, like Manta, like Tectonic. Very shaky names here. But Extreme Robots has been big on promoting Aftershock as the main robot of this group here. Of course, Aftershock, probably the flag bearer destructive robot in the UK right now. Outside of robots like Combot, obviously, who we just saw go top 8 in BattleBots. But Aftershock, unargued as the top spinning robot in Extreme Robots right now. I believe some robots like Ripper and Magnetar got victories on it before, but outside of that, it has pretty much been unanswered. But lastly, talking about a bit of a wild card team here, but a team that is probably the most synonymous with Extreme Robots and Roaming Robots and the Robot Wars live tour, whatever the name was. Craig Callias and Team Gabriel have been there with robots like the Saint. The Saint, obviously, their first main robot, but Gabriel has really become their all-star robot. It's revolutionized the sport in terms of robot design. We've talked plenty about Gabriel in the past when we were talking about Robots Live. It's probably the best TWAC bot in the world right now, especially in the heavyweight class. But they also have Uriel, a robot very similar to Gabriel that it arms itself with a hammer instead of a twacking system. We're likely going to see a lot of Uriel during these competitions. So those are our 3 teams. Obviously, the favorite being Team Inferno. We're probably going to see a lot of hard-hitting robots on that team. Of course, Michael Oates, a very serious competitor in the UK scene. And then next, Chris and Glenn will get into how the point system would work for this competition, or series of competitions, I should say. It is fairly simple here. It is going to be 3 points for a victory. It doesn't matter if it's a knockout or a judge's decision. 3 points for a win is a win. In the rare case of a draw, both robots will get 1 point, and if it's a loss, you don't get any points at all. It doesn't matter if it's a split decision or if you get knocked out immediately, you get zilch. Not after that. So winning is very important in this competition, and there's a lot of ways to win in the UK scene. As you know, there's a lot of alley arenas in those events. You have the pit. In some cases, you have the house robots. You can get robot caught up in the tangle of the arena walls. It's a very UK style arena. Very fascinating set of rules, especially if you're only used to American robot combat here. But I think the big topic here is the prize money. We have some prize money, which is a bit uncommon for the UK scene. Usually these events are more of like friendlies or leisurely style of events. But the pairing also announced that the prize money for the winning team will be 5,000 quid or pounds, I believe. One of those is a term. I'm only an American here. And the Combot Collective did ask in the comments, is this going to be like a shared prize pool? Is this all going to go to Team Ignition or Team Shock or Team Gabriel? Or is this going to be 5,000 to each team that partakes in, Team Inferno, Team Quake, or Team Divinity? And Extreme Robots left me with a simple, more details will be revealed later. So just stay tuned. We'll post more about this in the future. So that's that. If I had to imagine, it's probably going to be 5,000 split between all the teams that are on that group, which probably won't end up being that big of a payout. Maybe the captain team gets a little bit more. I hope maybe it'll be 5,000 to each championship team. Maybe it depends on how many events you partake in. I could see that being like a thing they try to split it and divide it about with. it'll be interesting. We'll have to see how that goes when it comes around towards the end of the year. And of course, over the past few weeks since Extreme Robots made this big announcement, we have 6 robots which have already gone ahead and announced their confirmation for the May event and events beyond in Extreme Robots here. Starting off, of course, with the 3 captain robots, the robots that we've talked about earlier in the video just a few minutes ago. Aftershock, Eruption, and Gabriel all have been confirmed and advertised for these events. Gabriel and Eruption and Aftershock, all robots that have fought one another plenty in seasons past, both in Robot Wars and in Extreme Robots, and especially in Eruption and Gabriel's case, even Robots Live, those 2 teams have fought one another so many times. That's a very common thing in the UK scene, but especially for Team Ignition and Team Gabriel, there's a lot of history and rivalry there. I believe we've talked about their fights in the past, and even on the old Combot Collective blog, we were even talking about those 2 teams fighting. So there's a deep-rooted history there. But talking about some of the other robots that have confirmed themselves, we also here have 2-headed Death Flamingo coming from the RoboCast crew, Sam Elliott's team of builders there. It's a very fantastic robot. We talked about it quite a bit in our Robots Live event breakdown back in September. 2-headed Death Flamingo ended up going, I believe, 2-2. They finished 3rd overall in that event. They showed some really good control with their wide wing setup and their 2 axe heads, which can rake up a lot of points. These guys can take a robot to the house robot, to the pit with pretty good ease, or even to the floor flipper. That's another hazard I forgot about being a part of these arenas. But the team does have some troubles. It seems like they wheelie pretty badly whenever they don't have the wings set up. And once they get flipped over, they really do get caught into some bad situations. They've been pretty much food for robots like Ignition, Eruption, Tectonic in the past. So hopefully they can turn it around and make a good showing here, because this is one of those teams that really are trying to make a push to get on BattleBots in a future season. And you got to believe they're still making that push here. Talking about another team which has been trying to make a BattleBots appearance recently, even got as far as being confirmed for the 2020 season pre-COVID, with Donald Thump making a grand return here on social media and on the Extreme Robots page. This was a very exciting development here. Donald Thump has had a bit of a shaky past couple of years. Of course, a lot of people will remember the robot from its Robot Wars Series 10 appearance. Their captain doing a fantastic Trump impression, going out there and really making themselves a fan favorite with a robot that kind of underwhelmed, but we have seen them get better, get a little bit more reliable. Not the most reliable robot in past Extreme Robots appearances, but they have sharpened the blade a little bit at Extreme Robots in the past. Now they're coming in here with a little bit of a jakey history. Like I said, in 2020, they were confirmed to come to BattleBots as Winston Churchill. It was going to be a loaded season with a lot of UK teams, and honestly, this was probably a team that was going to end up in a bunch of rumbles, given how stacked that season was going to be. More of a comedy bot for a few segments. But it was looking like it was going to be a proper thing that we were going to see in action. But unfortunately, COVID did end up happening. The team would apply again with Donald Thump, but more with a generic ambulance kind of theme design for the following season, which kind of confused a lot of people, myself included. No one really knew what that was about, since they were so immersed with the politician theme and they were pulling it off pretty well. But now it looks like Thump is back. They're right back on the right track here. They've had plenty of years to make this robot better and stronger, and from the preview video, it seems like this Donald Thump is a brand new build, brand new robot, freshly plated hard docks, as we can see right here. And we have high hopes for it. You know, Aftershock's going to need some pretty hefty competition in these events. We don't know if Stripper is going to be back yet. We don't know if Magnetar is going to be back yet. So maybe Donald Thump can get in there and cause some proper damage. But we do know one spinner that will be coming back. As we talk about Apex here, the infamous overhead spinner, which literally broke the Robot Wars arena back in Series 10 against Traction. Apex has had a bit of an up and down time since that appearance as well. Not as up and down as Donald Thump, but as we know, Craig Danby did move over to the United States since that appearance. Apex has had a little bit of success in these Extreme Robots events in the past, since they have allowed spinners. They have picked up a destructive win here or there, but they have been a little bit unreliable. They have had some pretty gnarly losses. Not as bad as the Traction loss, where they literally threw their weapon, but it's been a little bit up and down for Apex. They're still trying to find their niche as a real glass cannon horizontal spinner. And I believe Chris Danby, which I believe is the brother's name, will be driving Apex at this upcoming Extreme Robots event. This, of course, like I said, the original Apex, the one we've seen in Extreme Robots events in the past, the one we saw at Robot Wars Series 10. overhead spinner, your classic. But you gotta watch out for this robot because as easily it can kill itself, it can still kill you. It's a true powerhouse in every sense of the word, even for itself. And then lastly, at the end of this video here posted by Extreme Robots, Chris would bring up to Glenn that he may need a passport for upcoming events. I don't know if that was just an offhand joke or maybe they're possibly teasing an international event here. Obviously, Extreme Robots and their teams do have a little bit of history with events in China, with events in Russia. So we could see them maybe going to one of those regions for another international event. And of course, we did see Robots Live just back in November going to Saudi Arabia for a series of heavyweight events that we've covered in the past here. This is a very interesting development. Who knows how much this is actually going to weigh in on anything, but we do love covering international events here. But that's going to do it for us here at the Combot Collective. Thank you again to Mr. Redman for hopping in there at the first half of this video, talking about his stance and his excitement about Extreme Robots and him potentially maybe going to the Colchester event. We would certainly love to see it here at the Combot Collective, him doing a little bit of scouting. But that's going to wrap it up for this news segment here at the Combot Collective. If you're liking what we're doing here, please give us a like, please give us a comment, please give us a subscribe, follow our Instagram and Facebook, and join our Discord community. I am Sterling Brown. You can find me on Instagram at SterlingTXTG and in future projects. You can find my buddy Mr. Redman on his website, www.joshuagunnet.com, which will be in the description below. This has been the Combot Collective, and thank you so much. We will see you when we cover.
This was the Combat Collective. Find us on Instagram and Discord.